Hi, Sam. How are you?
Great, Calen. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, which is a lie.
Which is a lie. I was just going to say, when I said I'm doing great, that's my standard answer.
Yeah, which is, why are we lying to each other?
I don't know, man. We know each other well
I know.
enough. We don't need to lie to each other
we can
anymore.
tell each other the truth. So
All
tell
right.
me your truth.
Well, I've had a really terrible couple of weeks. They've been really stressful. I've had some major issues hit my business, which I've taken on, and I can't get past them, and I can't get out of my head. I'm taking it home with me. I'm not sleeping well. I'm nervous. I'm shaky. I feel like there's nothing I can do, and I think most of my energy is being spent just coping with those kinds of feelings and just trying to keep it together for my family and for my employees and for myself, really.
Yeah. I think I could just record that and replay it back, because that's similar to how I'm feeling. Just a whole bunch of things coming down the pipe and pressure, and you're trying to do things, and it's kind of like a set of dominoes. So once one domino falls, and even last week I was thinking, okay, this has the potential of being kind of a disaster week. If one thing happens, I can see the dominoes falling, and sure enough, they fell just as I thought. But so you're in it, and I'm literally going, okay, I just have to put one foot in front of the other, try to get through it, and try to maintain some composure, which I think is probably the challenge for us too, because we also have people on our team that are looking up to us for leadership, and maybe assuming that we don't suffer some, pressures or stresses or mental health issues.
Like it doesn't bother us. Like we can just skate through anything. I think I come by that honestly because for years I have just skated by and just been okay with how things are.
Yeah,
and
things
take it on the chin really well, and I'm pretty accustomed to things not going my way and having to deal with that stress level to the point where it's not a badge of honor to deal with it anymore, but I'm so accustomed to it that I don't know.
Well, I think you have your go-to responses. I know I do. So, being in business as long as we have, and in this industry, we're always struggling hand to mouth, and we're always willing to take less because we know it isn't an industry that's typically enriching its owners. And then you factor in just the stresses and pressures of the COVID, what's going on. And I know that it's funny because, our topic today is on mental health, and it's Mental Health Month, Mental Health Awareness Month. So I think, I don't know whether we came first, our podcast, the month, or our issues. But
they converge like they should. They just definitely converge. We've got a couple really great guests on to talk about this today, don't we?
We do. It's super excited. We're going to be bringing on Ginger Henderson, who is a counselor in Victoria, has a great deal of experience on these issues. We're also going to bring on Shawn Soole. Shawn Soole from Soole Hospitality, very well known in our industry here. He is the island chair for the Mind the Bar program initiative it's a nonprofit that was set up, and Shawn could talk about it, but it's a really good access for resources for mental health issues. So why don't we kick off the conversation with Ginger Henderson. How are you?
Ginger Henderson.
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me on. This is just such an important topic, and you're right, to have it to be this month is great.
Yeah, it's worked out well. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you do and what you've done. And
Yeah, so I'm a therapist here in Victoria. I've been practicing for about 8-ish years. I have a group of 6 of us now that work in Royal Oak. So I started my office about a year and a half ago, where I brought on 5 other therapists to work with me, because honestly, the demand that I was feeling working alone as a therapist was overwhelming. I couldn't keep up with the amount of clientele that I was having, and then my caseloads and stuff. So I opened up a really great office right in the Royal Oak Plaza, and I took on 5 other therapists. And now, honestly, we were counting a little while ago, and we have about 700 to 800 clients coming in a month.
Wow. That's
holy cow.
Have
you seen that increase a lot since COVID?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I was on my own for like about 8 years, really, and then I opened this up because of the need. And I thought, well, I'm going to have these 5 therapists, and we'll see. And I'll be I have somebody to give my referrals to, because I couldn't keep up with it. So I thought, you guys come on and you can do your own thing, but I'll give you some referrals when they come in. I had no idea. And some of them are going like, hold on a second, like there's just so much work. And I'm like, nope, there's 7 days a week. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's
You know,
go.
so it's great. Yeah. And I mean, we love what we do. And we're so thankful that we can help. And the best part is that we stopped with COVID, but we'll start up again. But we did have a drop-in service. So we would put out a big banner and we would say drop-in counseling. And we would just, we'd all sort of figure out in our schedules when we could allocate a couple hours of 1 day a week kind of to do that. And you should have seen it. People coming in they'd be getting their groceries or driving by to go get gas and realizing, I need to talk to somebody. And it was just right there, right at their fingertips. So it's just been heartwarming to be able to help so many people and to be able to have a safe place that a lot of people are kind of calling their safe home, right?
I've never heard of drop-in therapy. Is that something that you thought of, or is this something?
Yeah, they have it for children in the ministry.
Okay.
So children that they used to sort of have that. I don't even know if they do anymore, but there is no adult drop-in counseling besides ours.
My God.
Or on the Peanuts. It makes me think of the Peanuts cartoon, the 5 cents psychiatric
Yeah.
drop-in.
Yeah, right?
Well,
I hope we're a little bit better than that. But
exactly. Sam, where are you going with this?
I'm just drawing comparisons.
It's funny because as you were talking and describing your business and how you've scaled it and brought in the service, and it's basically in a retail type environment, obviously, because the Royal Oak thing is. And I was thinking before you were talking, I was like, wow, it would be really cool if they did a drop-in service. And then sure enough, you had that established already. And I think that is so important because I think stigma and also understanding of how to even access it, And
so when that's why we really got this ungodly size banner just to throw up in front of under my sign kind of thing. So people coming from the other side of the plaza would see this big red sign that says counseling. I think it says, safe, confidential and drop in, and you can just come and say, okay, I need somebody,
Oh my God,
and it was so nice to see people really kind of, dropping what they were doing to take care of themselves.
Oh, it's so inspiring. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Well, and speaking to that, as far as creating infrastructure for mental health and drawing people's attention to certain programs and how to access it, our next guest who will join the conversation is Shawn Soole. Shawn, why don't you give everybody a brief background of where you come from, what you're about, and a little bit about the Mind the Bar.
And hello, Shawn.
Hi, you guys. How are you? Obviously, I'm not Canadian. I came here about, 15 years ago now. Came to Canada 15 years ago, and a number of years ago, I started my own consultancy firm, which is Soole Hospitality. I now run 4 different companies with multiple different partners and whatnot, and projects everywhere. But a couple of years ago, I started talking to Shawn from Mind the Bar in Vancouver. I think they kicked off around 2015, 2016. And they really came very well known after every year the Tahona Society, which is Altos Tequila, do a big sustainability culture sort of event down in Mexico. And Mind the Bar won $50,000 US.
Wow.
To back the projects and everything that we sort of were working on. And so it's set up as a legitimate nonprofit organization in BC. We expanded to Vancouver Island about 2 years ago. I think we had our AGM on Vancouver Island, 2019, just before the pandemic hit. And so we had to sort of really regroup because we were just about to start ramping up and then everything shut down. And it's difficult to balance the mental health aspect of the industry when you're just trying to survive and keep the doors open. I know it goes hand in hand, but 9 times out of 10 as operators and people in the industry, we're not really thinking about our mental health. We're thinking about, okay, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to keep my staff employed? How am I going to keep my doors open? How am I going to pay my bills as a staff member? And then mental health becomes a secondary thing. And so this year we really regrouped and started really pushing into the resources we have, how we can get the word out. So we brought on a volunteer social media manager and the whole shebang. So our social media has been more active in the last 2 months than it has been in the last 2 years. Yeah. So, but yeah, I've been a big advocate for my mental health since 2015, and been very open about my struggles with mental health for a lot of the younger people in the market. And so it's just a perfect fit. And Shawn and I became good friends, and Christina Cottel, his partner in his businesses as well as in Mind the Bar. And so it was sort of a perfect fit for me to step up and become a chair member, or whatever my title actually is, Vancouver Island chair for Mind the Bar. So I'm really happy with the way the organization is going and the resources we have available. So I try and plug it as much as I can.
It's funny because I just heard of Mind the Bar recently from our mutual friend. I think Jeff Hetherington was exposed to it, and I couldn't believe that this was around. And like you said, it's been here a few years, and obviously we've been in the hospitality industry a long time as well. And not to know that this is around, I think that probably exemplifies the issue, is just lack of awareness of resources. So, how do we talk a little bit about that? Like, how do we get this out and messages out to these types of businesses?
Well, again, it's a specialized sort of mental health organization. Like, I know that it's hospitality. Hospitality is a massive industry, but hospitality being a massive industry is sort of also a pro and con to try and get the message out, because being such a specialized organization with LifeWorks attached to us and all that sort of stuff, it's been an interesting sort of climb, because you assume, like, as an older person in the industry, or an old industry person, that you'd put this out and everybody would just be clamoring for it, because we're always asking about mental health initiatives and stuff like that. But then when we do, it's sometimes crickets, and trying to pull a horse to drink water is not the easiest thing in the world to sort of make. I think, one, for people to admit they may need help, and then two, to actually like go ahead and find us on the internet and sign up for stuff. It's always one of those sort of hurdles that we're trying to break down right now as much as possible. So yeah, when Jeff reached out, I was like, listen, I talked to Shawn, I was like, can we get like a 1-page write up about what we do and how we do it? It's always interesting, because I think people in the industry are always skeptical of anything that's free.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's the catch? And because of that $50,000 grant that we got from the Tohono Society, we pay for LifeWorks, the app, for as many people. That's membership to us is free. None of us get paid for our involvement in it. We are 100% nonprofit voluntary organization. And we get people sign up for the LifeWorks app. And then, so we've done walkthroughs on video of how to access and how to use the LifeWorks app. And you have 24-hour a day, 7-day a week access to a therapist or a counselor, depending on what you're sort of going through. You answer a quick questionnaire and it'll actually push you through to one of the LifeWorks counselors that's specifically designed to deal with that moment in time, like, oh, I'm really anxious about work, or I'm feeling suicidal, or I'm having substance misuse problems, and it'll actually push you through to the person that can actually help you directly. But again, it's like leading a horse to water. You can't really make it drink.
Yeah. Now, does LifeWorks, is that kind of a North American type app or world app? Are they accessing?
Yes. Yeah. It can be accessed anywhere, and it's just an app on your phone once you download it. And once you sign up for it, we send you codes and everything to sign up for completely free. And then we pay for all the back end. And so I think even Jeff was like, oh, so how much for an organization to sign up? I'm like, free. How much for a person to sign up? I'm like, free. How much is to use the app long term?
Jeff loves the term free.
He's not afraid of that. He's not afraid
he was making sure that I signed off on all the T's and dotted all the I's before he was like, oh, this is a great app to use.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just downloading LifeWorks right now on my phone. That was just that easy.
So Ginger, let me ask you this: like, how, because of your, what I think you've done in Royal Oak is fantastic, and what hopefully you'll do again is with the drop-in. Like, how valuable do you see the differences of how you receive the counseling? Like, if somebody's accessing through the LifeWorks app and doing it that way, is that a great way to do it, or what are your thoughts on from a professional standpoint?
Oh, I mean, I think it bases on the individual and what they're needing. I don't know, is it sort of like, when I don't know much about that app, so is it that once you do find a therapist, then do you speak to them sort of via texting, or is it Zoom meetings, or how does that work, and how often can they access it? I don't know much about the app and how that works.
They can do audio, and then they can then flow through. I think they get a couple of sessions for free, and then it sets up like a strategy and a plan to keep pushing forward, and it may be a referral to someone else, or continue with the exact same counselor or therapist.
So it could be short term, or could be longer if the person needs it. And then I mean, any help is as long as the person is, obviously registered and that kind of thing, I think is wonderful. It's different than what we do for sure, but because we do mostly in person, but we're also doing a lot of online support for clients and stuff. I always make sure that if someone's going to start with a counselor, that they're not going to have to be abruptly ended with a counselor, because that can cause a lot of a trauma response that we want to be careful of. So we have something in town called USTAT, which is a short-term therapy thing. So if somebody's really in crisis, they go to USTAT and they can get, I think it's up to 8 sessions. I get a lot of clients, and I know my team gets a lot of clients coming from that organization. Nothing against the organization. I think it's wonderful, but we get a lot of people coming in and they are now dealing with that quick sort of Band-Aid ripoff of now they've opened up to a therapist. They've told them some really important things, some really deep stuff, and now they have to stop. And so I always just worry about that and making sure that there's always a plan to continue. But it sounds like this app is wonderful for that, for sure.
Like, if someone comes to your drop-in, like what type of information could they expect to share for the initial? If nobody, like a lot of people haven't had this experience, but what type of information are you looking to get from them to
well,
start?
again, everything that we do with therapy is individualized. So let's just say somebody comes in and they're in a major crisis point, or they're having suicidal ideation. Then we're going to come up with a safety plan with them, and we're going to try and figure out how we can sort of guarantee as much as possible that we now have a contract with that person to keep them safe. If they're coming in and they have some trauma from their past, or they have adverse childhood experiences that are causing them to have lifelong issues, we always are very honest. We're not going to fix anything in an hour.
Yeah.
But here, now you've come in, you've got to meet one of us. You've had an hour-long session, and we have the drop-ins an hour. We treat it just like a regular session. So you're just, you're what's going on for you. This is the space you can come. Tell me what you'd like to get out of therapy. We'll usually end up with a few strategies for them to try based on what their experience is and what they're going through. And then we usually set them up with another session sort of, and now we start therapy, right? So if they're going to come in once and just do a drop-in, they're going to get some quick strategies in a safe place, and they're going to feel good about having a place to come to talk, but they're not going to fix what the issue is in an hour, right?
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of setting them getting them used to coming in and just beginning that journey.
Yes, because that is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the hardest part over anything. And we do some really hard work in therapy. It's not all rainbows and butterflies,
Oh.
There's some times where I'll say to my client, your only job right now is to go home and sleep, because we've just uncovered some major trauma that you didn't even know was in you, or there's stuff that we do that are just, it can be so overwhelming, but we always get to a better space. We always do the work to get to a better place. So if someone's coming in and it's dropping, we're really careful. We don't want to uncover some big stuff in that first hour anyways. We never do. But we know if there is something that's bigger going on, we can say, we'll talk about that once you've built in some time and you feel really safe. So drop-in it's really, you have to be very careful with drop-in. You have to be really careful when we have clients that come to us.
I can imagine.
It's such a sensitive thing to have somebody walk through your door and say, hi, I want to share everything I've been through in my life and I need your help. Like sometimes we're just, again, so in awe that we get to do that work. And
it feels like having that kind of easy access to help it's a great solution, but would that attract people who are on the just they're all set, and this is the last piece that they needed was just that invitation to come in and spill their guts?
Yes. Yeah. Do you mean in the sense that then they know, okay, it's almost like a sampler for therapy, right? You kind of get to go in, you're like, okay, actually it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
I felt a great rapport with that person.
Makes it much easier to come back the next time and the next time. But that
first walking in the door, the first phone call is the hard one. And then when walking in the door, we have so many people that have messaged and said, I'm actually in the parking lot. I can't come in. Okay, no problem. We'll come out and get you.
Oh.
We'll talk about it, from the car window for a second, and then you can meet me and then come in. That happens not often, but it has definitely happened.
Oh,
wow. So it's interesting to hear I know that there's a wide variety, and just to give a bit of background, I've been seeing a psychologist for 25 years regularly. I had a trauma back in 1994. a medical trauma that I started the process with a psychologist, and that she's still my same psychologist.
Yeah, good.
So I kind of understand the process, and I understand what the challenges, but also the opportunities that come with counseling and psychological stuff. Shawn, talk a little bit about our industry and the hospitality and why. I mean, I view this as a very systemic problem in our specific industry, whether it be the age group, whether it be the ownership, or whether it be just the polarization between the kitchen staff and the front staff, and just the nature of the work that they're doing. Talk to us a little bit about the staff industry from your perspective.
I think the hard thing with the hospitality industry is it is extremely hard. It is a hard industry to be in. I think the root of a lot of our issues, especially for front of house, back of house is a different step, but like for front of house, I feel like in our DNA, we're supposed to be people pleasers, and that is extremely taxing on somebody to serve 50 people, that your main goal is to keep that person happy and make sure that they leave your establishment the happiest they could put.
Kind of like Ginger. That's what Ginger does every day.
Exactly. So like it's extremely taxing mentally on just trying to keep everybody happy all the time. And I think as an industry, we're hit with a lot more issues these days, because I feel as our society changes, there's a lot more people out there that put a lot more pressure on hospitality and restaurant staff to make them happy in a way that people come in miserable on a Friday afternoon because they've had a horrible week. Their bosses are not a nice, I was going to swear, but I know I can't swear on these sort of things, is not a nice person, and they come in, and I've had this over the years, is like they come in just fuming, and your main goal is to make them happy. And that's a lot of pressure, especially as Ginger was saying, for like a 22-year-old hostess or a 23-year-old server or a younger bartender. Your main goal is to turn this person's whole week around and make them happy again. So I think there's a ton of pressure. When it comes to back of house, I think the old school boys like mentality and that systemic like toxicity is just the killer in the back of house. I did a podcast last week, just sort of as a event, because I was on Clubhouse and chatting to a friend, and he wrote an article about why in the US, especially, people aren't going back to work. And a whole bunch of old school hospitality people and chefs especially were like, oh, that's just because the younger generation don't want to work as hard, the usual trope that comes along with this sort of this sort of article. And I thought about it, I was like, as a generation, shouldn't we be hoping that the next generation doesn't have to work as hard? In every industry all over the world, everything's got better. But for some reason in hospitality, when I started my career in 1997, I was expected to work like 15, 16-hour days. And yet now we're still putting that pressure onto 22, 23, 24-year-old kids to work 16-hour days in the kitchen, like prep and then double shifts and all this sort of stuff. Yet the industry hasn't got any better in the way of things. And I look back and I was like, my grandfather would never want me to be working the same way that he worked, and so on and so forth. And I think this is the only industry as a generational thing that we aren't trying to make it better for the next generation. We aren't thinking about the work-life balance, the mental strains, all these sort of things. It's not about younger generation not wanting to work as hard. It's just they shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. And part of what the Bread and Butter Collective main objective is to look at this new generation coming up and really give them the benefit of how we screwed up, and we want their life, we want like their parenting. Jobs, and it is parenting. It's exactly the same thing, right? We want our children's lives to be better than our lives, and we want the next generation of hospitality workers and owners to have a better life than we have. Otherwise, I mean, we aren't progressing. Right. And there's so many issues
that are tied into, and I agree with Shawn's point. And I think there has been some change. Obviously, having owned a restaurant for 22 years or 21 years, Zambry's old school, the classic. I mean, Peter Zambry, my partner, is a classic trained chef, old school. literally, like, you'd have to, like, nobody would ever be able to survive what they did, went through 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
They just, not in this day and age, they wouldn't, but there's still hangover from that, because that's how those people that are in those industries that are, or in our industry, that are training, and you know, some are more progressive than others, so they've made slight changes, but a lot of those chefs and owners need therapy themselves, just because of the trauma they went through, just through their training and upbringing and all of that. And we're doing it in a world where the business structure doesn't support anything else. And then when you talk about, it's going to sound like a bit of a rant, but you talk about the customers' expectations on our industry, and then they look, oh, this is too expensive. You didn't serve me right. There's not enough value here. You know, why are you in a hurry? Why are you not listening to all my stories? Whatever. And that's part of the service industry. We get that. But if we can't charge enough that we can pay enough, and also provide some of these mental health supports and just life supports in general, like, it saddens me when I hear that, you know, someone can't, like in my case with a staff member that suffered a head trauma, and my manager knew I have a brain injury, so messaged me to see if I would reach out to him, and I did, just to explain my experience with it and to offer my support and help. But the real thing he needed was dollars, because that's how he was going to access the specialist that he needed to deal with. And he wouldn't have been able to find, like, it wasn't a direct connection for him to find that. And that saddens me, you know. It saddens me that, you know, someone who's, and this person might be, say, 23 years old, they don't have a close connection or close family network of support. They're literally on their own. And I think that to me, I would like to bring that to the forefront, and then work on finding the resources and figuring out how you can patchwork, even starting in our community, patchwork some support. And I don't know what that looks like. From what advice, Ginger, would you give hospitality owners who are dealing with, I mean, we have over 100 employees, and Sam's got a ton of employees, and, you know, whether you got 10 people or 20 people, you're dealing with our collective probably has 500 employees just in our collective so far. So what would you give us advice to, like, how would you see how your industry could pave the way for making it easy for our industry to either, you know, buy group packages for counseling sessions? I mean, I had an idea that I pitched in one of our meetings the other day, just about, you know, prepaying for counseling and just allowing these windows and just letting our staff know that if you want counseling, here's this window. It's every Friday between 12 and 4. You can book your appointment. It's paid for by us and outside of the benefit program.
Yeah, I've got a lot of things I can tell you, a lot of suggestions I have.
Good.
So trying to figure out which one to prioritize first, but just piggybacking on what you just said, there is companies that do sort of hire us in the sense of saying to their employers, if you want to come into, you know, Ginger Henderson Counseling Services, you can pick your counselor. Like I said, there's 6 of us, and they pick us. And then when we go to bill, we just bill the employer, and it's anonymous, because we just say, okay, one session, this date, that's it. And they have it, and then not having it being anonymous is really helpful for some of those employers, because they don't have to know who's going to it.
Yeah.
We just sort of we would bill you and that kind of thing. And then they know this is your place to go, and you can go and access it. And I've seen, we have a few places of employment that are doing that with us, and you can really see that people are accessing it. And then they start to talk, right? Yeah. Especially that younger generation, those servers and hosts, they start to talk, and we get so many people going, well, my friend was coming in and she had anxiety, and then she told me the strategy that you told her, and so I thought, well, I want to go. And it's sort of, they're piggybacking on each other and kind of going, well, it's almost, it's not trendy, but it's like, wow, look at the difference and look what's happening, right? It's kind of seeing somebody go to a physical trainer and a personal trainer and seeing the difference. It's kind of that same mentality that I'm seeing happen. So for sure, having a group of therapists or a therapist of some kind that your employee, it doesn't have to be us, it could be anybody, but somebody that you guys say, yes, here you go, you can access this stuff. But then that's a lot of stress for you guys. So then I think if there's a way to get, because we do, some people can use their benefits depending on what the wording is, right? So you know how you get your benefit package, and it'll say you can go to psychiatrist or a social worker.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Those are, so you'll get some people, then that's not us. If it says registered counselor, therapist, that's us, right? So if you're looking at your benefit package that you have that you're providing your employees, I would suggest to make sure that it accesses the things that are really important for that age demographic, right?
Well,
I get that, eyesight is important, but are you going to have as many people going getting their eyes done at 23 than that need mental health? Not really, right? So I would be looking at that for sure. So those are
that's
two
really
things
good
on
tip.
the.
I think it's a
I
awesome.
I do that at 2% Jazz. We've always had a choice between going for health packages, more pills and pharmaceuticals, to more kind of natural treatments, massage therapies, all those kind of alternate, not even alternate therapies anymore, just more kind of holistic approaches to your overall health. And we've always picked that, and it's still a struggle to encourage your employees to use the package. I mean,
It's there.
It's there.
But is that a package? Are these packages that are from these insurance companies, are they even aligned with today's world and with actually,
No.
like
Absolutely not.
they're not, right?
Absolutely not. But I do say that about 60% of my caseload does get their have benefits for counseling. So it's not horrible. It's not what it used to be, but it's definitely not what it needs to be.
Like it's almost as if you need someone to think of. Like I always think, for me, I always try to get to, okay, what's the answer? What's the solution? How can we fix this? So understanding that some problems are bigger than any one person or any one group of people. It would be really nice to see some insurer just target hospitality industry, age demo, that type of thing, that you can have a package that's built for the staff that are from 18 to 29 or 17 to 28 or 30 or something that satisfies those needs.
I know you can call certain insurance companies and say, okay, like what are the different packages you have and which one would be able to access counseling, because psychiatrists are needed for sure, psychologists are needed for sure, but counseling is more of like, so people don't really understand what the difference is between the three.
Yeah, why don't you explain?
So psychiatrist is where you're going to go and you're going to have more of a severe mental health that's going to need medication, and they're not going to spend hours and hours and hours with you. They're going to have a quick, like a doctor's appointment, right? So you go in, you tell them what's going on, they give you the medication, then you check up on your medication periodically to make sure it's working or not working, and then they adjust accordingly. Psychologists are a lot like counselors, so we're the ones that are sort of pretty much the same, but psychologists are allowed to do a diagnosis that will work sort of for the government. So if you need your child to be diagnosed with something, if you need a diagnosis that then the government will see in a sense of funding, or say autism or a specific type of diagnosis that you will need, then a psychologist can do that. We as counselors cannot. However, we will work with psychologists. So for example, I had a client that I knew had a diagnosis that was causing something that was actually criminal. Not that it was causing it, but it was connected to a criminal act. I then said, after working with this person, I think this is what you have. And I think because of this has caused some of these behaviors. I can't then write that to sort of the Crown, but my write-up, my what I wrote just went to a psychologist who didn't know them, but just read up my report and said, okay, that works.
Sense.
Now that person got to be, that was actually implemented in a legal situation, right? So we can do a lot where we work with psychologists, with psychiatrists, that kind of stuff, but we can't do, it's almost like we need that extra signature kind of thing. So now with counselors, you come in weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, whatever, and you work constantly on what is going on for you. And it's a growing, we set goals, we set things that are in place based on what your individual needs are, and we are constantly working on that. So it's like you're more of a team, I find, with your counselor. We work together to fix the problem or get to solutions and change. The biggest thing I see with counselors is we're changing behavior patterns and figuring out where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the definition is exactly is beneficial, because I think a lot of people think, well, I'm not going to a psychiatrist, or I'm not, going to go do this or do that, or not even understanding that because I know there's different price ranges as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I know I pay $200 an hour for my psychologist, and perhaps I don't need a psychologist as far as
But if you've built that rapport and
exactly.
they really know you, that's different. But if you were maybe starting out today and you didn't have any help, maybe today you wouldn't need that psychologist. Maybe a counselor would have been, because really they do a lot of the same. Psychologists and counselors, there's not too much of a difference. You see the big difference in the jump of psychiatrist to counselor and psychologist. That's where you see that real big difference.
Yeah, and shift in focus, right?
Yeah. And counselors and psychologists, you can pick your own. Whereas psychiatrists is usually, it's really hard. You can't really choose your psychiatrist.
Yeah. No, that
right?
that makes a lot of sense. What does it cost for your services generally? Like just a ballpark for counseling? What could people expect?
For me specifically, I'm 125 plus GST.
Okay.
I know some of my counselors in my office here are a little bit less of a fee.
What would the range be typically in that profession?
I would say about between 110 and 150.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And then, of course, I do a lot of couples counseling, so that's a little bit more, but yeah.
No, that's great. That's really good information, because I think that's part of it too is, you know, if you don't have a benefits package, like not all people in our industry have a benefit package, so it's actually coming out of their pocket. And that's when you get down to the solution standpoint is I'd really like to come out of this discussion with some, you know, maybe not specific answers, but a direction. Because you know, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and in particular because it's you know, Mental Health Awareness Month, I'd really like not to waste much time, because people are in need of these types of supports now, and I'd like to build, and I like our Bread and Butter Collective to come up with here's what is a reasonable package. Here's how much this type of program would cost. My sister's our benefits provider, so I can call her up day or night and see if there's helpful. See, and she's working on our program right now, so it's kind of important for that. And we also I have an interest in topping up this stuff. Like let's just find out how much a good program would cost, and then get the information to our staff, and then just see what the access is. You know, and I love the idea of setting up a package where they can contact your group or a group. I mean, obviously, you and I are going to talk offline about a program that we could set up for our organization,
for sure.
And then see how that dovetails into the benefits package. Because I know with benefits, you can self-fund your own benefits package, or you can buy. And the tax implications there's tax implications and savings and ways to structure things. So with the self-funded one, you have a lot more control over the different things that you can do there, and you can access stuff. Like you can pick and choose what you do.
It's almost like a la carte.
Yeah, it's a la carte. But it takes more money.
Bringing it back to the industry.
You know, you have to fund it. So then it comes back. Like that. It comes back to the actual bottom line again of structuring your business in a way that you can afford to do this.
Yeah.
And
the other part I would like to sort of suggest to employers as well is don't be nervous to ask somebody like myself or my team to come in and do a talk, to talk to your team and to get them to get to know us, and we'll come in and do, you know, this is what you should be looking for within yourself when it comes to your own mental health. As employees and as employers, maybe we can, you know, help you guys to understand how to talk to your staff. Do sort of some of that good conversation. I think like that. Can you imagine if every restaurant had a therapist come in and do a talk and talk to them about what's going on for them and what are the biggest issues they're seeing, and then we could then come back to their employer and say, this is the big issues that we're seeing. This is how you can talk to them a bit differently, right? Like that kind of stuff. It's, you know, again, my daughter's in the industry, so I hear stuff and I'm like, oh, if they just knew that when they say that you feel this, then that makes your work, you know, your work doesn't look as good because you're feeling all this. If he knew that, he wouldn't, you know, so it's just sort of all of that. It would be nice to be able to teach some of those things.
It would be nice to have an in-house counseling session, like in the TV show Billionaires. You guys seen that? I'd love to have my therapist work a couple doors down and come in and give me the gears once in a while.
Oh, for sure. Well, and again, I mean, I'm projecting and my ideas come from my own personal experiences, and I go regularly to my psychologist, so I understand what and sometimes I'm just talking about whatever, and sometimes I'm like, what am I going to talk about today? And then before you know it, you get the talk going, and wow, okay, I did have stuff to talk about. And then you have those breakthrough moments where you're just like, wow, like there's nothing more powerful. And I've probably had, like in the 25 years plus I've been doing it, maybe 6 or 7 major holy cow, like major discoveries where I'm like, wow, this has changed. And a lot of that stuff is permanent. Like it's once you see it and learn it and understand it, you can't unlearn it. So it really starts building blocks, and that starts you down the journey.
It's the foundation. It's your foundation for your change of pattern in your behavior and your thought process. And once you start building, like you say, those building blocks, you start to have more of those, then you see those changes happen and it becomes who you are today. Whereas those building blocks were built in more of, in a wrong way when you were a kid, right? So then you learned how to cope and you learned your behavior patterns by people who were probably, I'm going to guess your parents are going to be at least 68-ish. So they didn't know what they were talking about with emotional health. So
did you say my parents are 60-ish?
Oh,
Ginger, are you flirting? No, my parents are, well, my dad's dead, but my mom is 73.
Okay, well, it's the mask hides half of what I'm getting.
Right.
No. I literally look 35. I do. When we meet in person, you'll be like, wow, yeah, 60 makes sense. Or 40 even makes sense. I'm 50, unfortunately.
But we think about that. The employers that are employing these people in the service industry are going to be around the ages that their parents had no idea how to raise them with emotional health.
Totally.
So now they were raised with that. Now they're trying to teach all these young people how to be in their service industry. They're not doing it with emotional regulation or any of that kind of stuff. Those weren't topics of discussion at all.
Oh, and I guess it stacks on itself too, because you're the chefs and the bosses and the supervisors and the owners didn't have that support. These staff, again, some of them are probably a little bit more progressive, because I would say the next generation down, like the parents of our staff are probably between the ages of 38 and 50 kind of range, in that range. Yeah. So they might be a little bit more aware. Shawn, what are your thoughts on Ginger's points and just some of the barriers, and how do we best introduce this access or try to figure that out?
I think we're in the process with Mind the Bar to do a similar sort of program with in collaboration 9 to 5, which is an organization on the East Coast, where we have an on-premise hospitality specific sort of come in and talk. This may sound a little bit, or I think that when it comes to mental health and hospitality, it does need to be almost forced when it comes to these conversations, because we are so guarded and we do keep to ourselves. You're going to have some staff that are really open about it, some staff that are really closed. I do believe that if you brought Ginger in to speak to all your staff, it would have to be mandatory, paid for, that sort of thing. I don't care if you don't think you need it. Chances are you do. Yeah.
Kind of like a staff meeting, right?
Exactly.
Like a staff meeting that you can't. Yeah.
Exactly.
But can you do that? I mean,
yeah. You can have a mandatory training as long as they're paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the reason, because everybody sort of has this sort of outside looking in mentality on people in the industry. Like some of the stuff you said today, Calen, and I'd be like, oh, hell. I wouldn't even know that, outside looking in. Same thing with Sam. Like Sam and I have been on the podcast together, so I know a bit about Sam, but like those business stresses and stuff. And I think a lot of the times, especially when you get to our age group, that's that sort of 40 to 45, 50-year-old age group. I am 40, so I'm younger than both of you. So my parents are 60. Although I think Calen does look younger than me. But once we get to this age group, that we sort of have to push for it to make sure that the younger staff sort of go. So from the outside looking in, that's the reason why I was becoming so vocal about it, is because I think people see me like I get to travel around the world when COVID's not around, and I'm successful and I have write books and I speak at shows and But like I have horrible social anxiety that I'm medicated for. I have PTSD from a bad business relationship in 2013, 2014, which still haunts me to a degree today. And again, going back to that people pleaser thing, when you do push into a different area of your life, when you hear other people's opinions about you, that eggs you. The same way that when you see a Yelp review or TripAdvisor review, even though you can put on a brave face for your staff, it still eggs you in the back of your head, like, oh, what did I do wrong? And that's just that's the big issue. And I think the cloak has been pulled back during COVID, because as operators, as even managers and head chefs and stuff, like you can have the most horrible day. Like you were saying, like you sit down with the accountant's like, yeah, you lost money last month. Yeah. Like, you're really like screwing up right now. But then at 5 o'clock, when that door unlocks, it's did. Smiling at tables, touching
Smiles
tables,
on,
kissing babies. How you doing, folks? Come on in. Like, and for me, I like to look at it the other way. It's like, I like to be really open with my staff and have really transparent conversations. It saves me an ulcer to tell them how I'm feeling, but also it gives the open door to seeing how they feel. Like, we've had a lot of conversations right now, because right now I think staff to a degree for hours and stuff have got it easy. If you've got a full-time job, you're only working till 10 o'clock at night, especially in the bar industry.
Yes, yeah.
Only working till 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. And I'm talking to my staff. I'm like, how are you guys going to be doing when we have to go to 12 o'clock again? And they're like, oh, so I'm already telling my staff that I'm going to be doing 4-day weeks, like really working your schedule to make sure that you're not burnt out, because when Clive's goes back to full capacity, that's with the patio is going to be 140 seats, 2 bartenders on a Friday for 8 hours straight. That's a lot to do. And I know what that was like, because I used to do it and burn out, and I used to wear that as a badge of honor. But now I'm like, you guys aren't doing what I have to do.
Yes.
I refuse to let that happen.
And you don't want them to wear it like a badge of honor either. That badge is faded.
Oh, for sure. The badges don't exist anymore.
No.
Yeah, I was just going to say that badge of honor is just caused so much defeat and caused, again, so much stigma. So I love that you guys are talking about it and owning it and knowing that you had it and how to get rid of it. It's such an important conversation.
So for me, I talk about self-awareness more than anything else these days. I like to work. I like working 12 to 15-hour days. That's what I personally like. My wife is super understanding. My daughter's super understanding. Working till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night in my office makes me very happy and fulfilled.
Yeah.
That's not going to be for the next person. I like taking 4 to 5 hours off a week. That's all I need to recalibrate. Ginger's just like, do you want to book an appointment after this interview? Would you like to book an appointment and just come in and chat about this issue?
I'm sorry, I shook my head out loud. I meant to shake my head.
But for me, I like to practice self-awareness. I don't like to try and do the grind hustle sort of mentality, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. It's your self-awareness. If you could be a great, my head bartender at Clive's knows he's a great number 2. He never wants to take my place. He's just a really great right-hand guy. And he's like, and he admitted to me, he's like, I just like hanging out and helping you out. He's like, I never want to do what you do. It's crazy. And I'm like, cool. And that self-awareness is hard to find. He's 42, so it's a lot easier for him. But self-awareness is what I push more than anything else now.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, as leaders in organizations, it's we're projecting a lot of our own crap on our team, and also drawing on our own experiences. And if our well of resources on these issues is low, that's what we're communicating to our staff. And I've through therapy, I've learned to be more self-aware, but also understand that you got to meet people where they're at. So not everybody, just like the customers coming in, you got to meet them where they're at. They're coming in bad mood, having a hard day. It's not personal. You need to say to yourself, hey, this is somebody who, let's see if I can make their day a little bit better. I don't have to cure all their problems, but I think a lot of people, if they can meet them where they're at, then it's a different understanding. Because it's just like when you're talking to a young person, it sometimes helps just get down to their level and have a face-to-face communication. I'm not a parent, so I'm just, again, stuff I've learned. But I think that is kind of, to me, what I picture when I deal with some of our team is just saying, okay, where are they at? And what is their level of understanding? What do they bring to the table, or what do they lack in their tool shed that I can maybe just draw some attention to, and open the door for some safety, like allowing them to understand that this is a safe place and we're not judging. And I think that is what is very evident in our industry, is just that lack of understanding and that lack of
the safe place and the building of trust. So building of trust from your employer, and for the employer to understand how to do that. That's sort of what I think of coming and speaking to an organization, and that's something that I talk about. So that's at the top of the priority list, really, is the building of trust. I sort of have 3 points when I think about what I would say, and building of trust, trauma-informed practice, and emotional, I call it the emotional backpack. I don't know where I came up with it, but just understanding how to understand that every single person we talk to has what I call a invisible emotional backpack on. So if you can kind of visualize that everybody's got what their dad said to them up until the age of 12, what their mom said to them up to the age of 12, their first relationship, the last relationship they've been in, what their relationship with their sibling was like, any trauma they've experienced, what school was like for them, like all of that is in our backpack. And so then we come to work, and then like you say, you're 23 and you've got all this stuff and you don't know how to process it, and you don't know what's going on, and you think you're the only one. Then you go to work and like Shawn said, you've got the customer that's like, make me happy. Like, oh my goodness, there's so much pressure. But yet, and then you've got the employer who's been raised by somebody who's just told them, just show up to work and be hardworking and collect that badge. Like, there's just so much that just isn't working.
I think you just summed up exactly the industry and some of the challenges right there.
I have an emotional hockey bag. So
right.
Mine's a little bit bigger than most people's.
And hopefully not as smelly as most hockey bags.
Yeah.
Mine's in a dump truck.
You go hiking and it's got like all the stacks on it. It's just like
well, and
climbing Mount Everest.
As owners of companies and as employers, I didn't understand any of that until I went to counseling and had my own epiphanies about my emotional backpack and what I carry around and how I see things, and the fact that I see things from my perspective that comes out of my backpack gives me the ability to be more empathetic to my employees and understand that, just because I ask them to do something and they don't understand what I'm doing or they don't do it doesn't mean that they're doing that despite me. Is that they're coming with their own perspective, with their own emotional backpack, and I have to understand them more. And my own growth has been able to foster my ability to help others grow, and I think that that's really important for all employers to understand and have a really good grasp on their own health and well-being so they can understand and help their employees with their health and well-being.
I think those are great points. My thought that I'm having right now is, here we have two people here who are understanding what needs to happen in the industry. So you guys working with your employees are going to be obviously bringing in that feeling of trust and that and understanding perspective and all that, which is amazing and wonderful. How do we now reach out to those employers who are just get the job done, don't earn that badge, do what I'm telling you kind of thing? How do we reach those employers? Because my thought is that they're thinking, I don't have time to worry about this person's mental health. I've got money I've got to make here. I got to get the stuff out. I got to be producing here. I can't be worried about, Susie's, what her dad said to her when she was 10. So how do we balance that to teach these employers that you can do both?
Yes.
And that the more you teach these people how to look after their mental health, and the more that you build trust with your employees, you're actually going to have more of the work be done.
Yeah,
I think in the next 6 months. Sorry, Cal.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I think the next 6 months is going to be the tell, because with us going back to full capacity, if your business isn't thinking about these things and applying, no, I don't think anyone is romancing. Well, a few people probably are romancing the old ways we used to do it. Like saying, "Oh, I want the restaurant industry to go back the way it was before COVID." No, that's a horrible plan. That's literally the worst plan ever. Let's not romance that. Like, it's gone, it's done. The curtain's been pulled back. The Wizard of Oz is an old dude pulling lines and pushing pedals. Like, staff are savvy now. They're going to go back to play. There's not going to be, I got to go to this place and work here. I'm not happy here because I can't get a job anywhere else. There's going to be a lot of jobs available, and people are going to pick employers that are doing training, have benefits, take mental health and work-life balance seriously, all these things. And I think that if an employer isn't looking at these things, they're not going to make money, because they're just going to have staff that come back that just hate their lives and can go somewhere else.
I like that vision that these people are going to have choices of where to work based on what's in it for them, instead of where can I get a job.
Yeah, and I think that's where our collective, and not to pump our collective, but I think the motivation of why we started our group was to make, systemic change in our industry, like permanently, and take whoever wants to come with us. So there's going to be people, and I think we're going to lead by example to address your point about how do we get the message out. And I think part of that is just promoting what we're doing. And when I view competition, and I always compare it to my partner, Joe Zambri, who, and she used to be my wife. So we're divorced and we're still business partners after 20 years. So I think that's a mental health achievement on both our parts, mostly her part.
Thank your psychologist for that.
Exactly. We've been able to manage a divorce, manage the whole thing, and still stay partners for 22 years. And we were together 16. But we just had our 10-year anniversary of our divorce. But we kind of toast that kind of stuff, which is good. But it's just about building this group of people that are like-minded that do it. But going to the competition part is when a store opens up a competing restaurant nearby, she'd be like, "Oh man, the competition, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "All we got to do is worry about ourselves doing it well, and then we don't have to worry about competition." And I think this example is the same as let's just build a group of people that we can grow a collective that are all doing the same things. And mental health is a huge part of it. And it ties in with living wages, which is another program we're working on right now in our group, is trying to figure out how to do living wages. And we had a podcast about tipping, and the tipping culture in our industry is basically leading people to servitude. And we're moving our financials to the customer and saying we're going to pay minimum wage to our staff and allow the public that gives the public a lot of power in the fact that, oh, well, we're tipping you and then there's pressure on the server and tip. And then they're like, well, I can't take my minimum wage notice of assessment to a bank to get a mortgage. So then I'm now again in servitude to the tips, which, you could claim them, but most people don't on your taxes, but it boxes you into a corner. And I'd like to I'm approaching it personally, but I'm really hoping to drive our collective in that direction where we can be, there's what's doing it right. They're paying a living wage. They have a health program that's enhanced. It's not just, oh, you can get benefits and you pay half and we pay half. It's like, that's not enough. Like, it's not enough to just put it there. You can lead the horse to water. You can't make it drink, but we need to build. And that's why I think from this conversation, I'd like to bring, Ginger in to all of our stores and have a meeting. And I'd like to ask Shawn, and paid, I'm asking, I'd like to pay you to do this. And I'd like to build a system that we can then share with our other members in our collective. And perhaps maybe your time doesn't allow to do everybody, or maybe you can't even do mine, but help us build something so that we can then start. Because I think part of the thing is people are just think, oh, it's too overwhelming. I can't start.
It's all about starting.
Right. Yeah, let's start.
It's about starting. It's about doing it.
Start.
Figure it out as you go.
So
it is all about starting. It's about starting how to figure this out. I mean, even like we say, starting counseling like that. Yeah. It's all about starting. Once you start, you get nervous to come in and you get nervous to talk. And then once you start, it's just such a nice, comfortable place to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think, So, I mean, I think the theme is just get started. Is there anything, so we're going to do that offline. So I'd like to do that because I'm very excited about all the information that we talked about and the potential of starting this and just taking it to the finish line. And like Shawn said, in the next 6 months, those that aren't thinking like this and doing this are going to be at a serious disadvantage. And it's not only these things, it's also about teaching them how to make money in their business so that they can afford to do these things. So, because that's the other aspect of this thing. If you have an owner that's stressed to the teeth and isn't making much money and having to deal with the bank, and they're not bringing their best to the discussion either.
Right.
And
it starts there, right? It starts at the top.
It starts at the top to foster an environment that makes it comfortable for your team. And I think that is where the staff are going to go to those types of places because they'll know they're supported. And like you said, the profit comes. Like if you invest in the people, the profit will come. And this idea, just like the old school restaurant and kitchens, it's the old school business philosophy. Like you just have to make profit. What's your profit? Get profit. Yeah. But what's the difference? And I'm going to say it because I just say stuff. I have brain injury, but it's almost like, a form of servitude, just like the tips is like, if we underpay our staff, we're making our profit on the backs of our staff. And that to me, I have a problem with that because I think as a business owners, we should be smart enough that we can pay people, and it's not everybody, like paying someone who's living at home, $30 an hour, who doesn't have limited training. There's scales, but someone who's supporting a family, who's living on their own, should be able to make a bare minimum, a living wage, and at maximum could actually, with another couple, be able to afford to get a mortgage, or at least work towards that over time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Robots.
I'm
Robots
just,
are
robots.
the answer.
Let's bring on the
robots.
No,
are the
no,
answer
no,
to
no,
everything.
So anyway, is any closing remarks you guys want to make? This has been, my brain is reeling. I'm just excited.
Ladies first.
I am just so thankful to be part of this conversation and to know that this is the change that's about to happen. I didn't know that the service industry, that you guys, what you did, and the fact that you're even having these conversations. And I'm excited now to see that there is going to be change. As a mom of somebody in the industry, and then as a therapist that works with people who work in the industry and come in here for help, I'm really excited.
Well, I think that's great. Shawn?
For me, don't be afraid to have the tough conversations. It does come back to a little bit of trust building within the organization. If you see your chef is getting drunk every night or doing drugs and stuff like that, my train of thought is, because I have lost someone in the industry to a suicide, and I was too hard on him before he passed away, and I put a lot of pressure on him because we were doing an event, and I put a lot of pressure on him. And I remember the very last email I emailed to him was 48 hours before he passed away. So for me now, I'm like, I would much prefer, I'm almost welling up myself. I'd much prefer to have a tough conversation with you and almost call you out and and say like, what's going on? How can I help? Yeah. Than to get a phone call at 8 o'clock in the morning that you got a bad batch of Coke, or you had a bunch of pills and drank half a bottle of bourbon, and I'm going to be burying you in the next week. And so for me, my uncomfortability, and I think everybody should have this, your uncomfortability for 15, 20 minutes of a conversation or half an hour of a conversation is way less than the uncomfortability of going to a funeral of a 32-year-old person.
Right. So, and to piggyback on that, I think it's important to know what to say with those conversations, right? I mean, you have to be kind to yourself. That, are you trained in how to talk to somebody like that? Probably not. So were you doing your best? I'm going to say you were, and you were doing what you thought you needed to do. So try to not be hard on yourself on that, but also that's part of that conversation of having conversations with employers. How do we talk to somebody that, like you say, is showing up drunk all the time or is having suicidal ideation? How do we recognize that it's time to say something, and what do we say?
Yeah. Well, and I think that is great. So I mean, I'm just thinking, I'm selfishly thinking of all the things I'm going to implement in my own businesses, but I'd love to have that a meeting with our senior management team as well, store managers, assistant managers, and because again, this change and this has to start at the top, I think. And then coupled with how to have the conversation and how to talk to the staff about these issues when they come up is what resources and what help are we going to provide? I mean, obviously it's great that we can, and I think different people have different levels of empathy and awareness. So some people are probably doing it better than others, but what can we say when that hard conversation, like, why are you doing, like, don't do this, or what's going on, or talk to me. There's obviously something happening. But I can offer you this service or this package, and then ultimately try to bring those two things together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man,
this is deep. And thank you both for your time. This was,
thank you,
like, amazing discussion, and this is just the beginning, not very start of the beginning. So I'd like to have you both on again once we've got some progress, and I'll be talking to both of you independently about how we can work together in our collective and also my own business on strengthening our supports around this area for sure, because it's something very close to my heart as well. So thank you both for your time.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to meet you,
so
Ginger, and it's always a pleasure, Shawn.
Always a pleasure. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be well.
Oh, holy cow.
Man, I feel emotionally
welled up at the
exhausted.
Oh, my, like, I've lost a friend to suicide as well, and it's one of those things is, obviously those are very individual choices to, that people make, but, it's so often hard on the survivors where You know, in this particular case, I literally had a choice to stop in and see this friend on my way up to see another friend, but didn't because that friend wasn't invited to this guy's wedding. And they used to be very close. And I just thought, well, I'll see him on the way back. I didn't want to really address that. And that weekend, he committed suicide.
I'm sorry.
And a lot of years ago, but I still hang on to that. Could I have made a difference? Could I have made a change? And I think if the change doesn't happen in those moments, like it's not that I lost a moment not seeing him. The moment was lost in not having the proper facilities and procedures and policies in place so that he could have sought help, or I could have been made aware of some signs prior to that, you know? So I think even in Shawn's case with his, you know, beating himself up, and I think there's a natural place to go is just then knowing that you're seeing the situation, causing yourself to pause and evaluate it, but then knowing that the tools that you need to communicate and also having the resources to provide help, or at least give them something. And then at that point, it's before, it's not after. You're not looking at it after this poor person has taken their life.
Right.
You know.
Well, I mean, and it's so prevalent. I mean, we're all going to go through something like that eventually. Yeah. I mean, the first time I went to go get counselor was because my brother died, and you know that triggered me to actually go talk to someone, and that triggered something else, and that made me more aware. And
and didn't it feel like a safe place after you went there, and then you saw the benefit, and now all of a sudden that is in your tool chest,
and now I want to share that with other people, right?
And I think sharing it is part of it. Like, I don't know, I mean, people that are in my circle know that I see a psychologist and have for years, but I share that willingly because and also the benefit of it. Like, even if there isn't some acute trauma or acute things going on, just having that sounding board that's independent, that's trained at determining certain things so they can lead you down, you ultimately figure it out yourself. You know, and that's the thing that I think people maybe aren't aware in this issue, is that they think that it's just a magic wand that the psychologist or counselor are just going to wave a wand.
Yeah, no, they're going to give you a broom and they make you sweep.
Yeah, you sweep the mess up, and you know? And you're gonna figure it out, and that's where the self-discovery comes from. So, I think, you know, I'd like to, you know, hopefully have our industry in particular, like hopefully we can spread it around the whole world, but in particular in our city, it's just a group of people that are engaged and switched on and addressing this issue in amongst the other issues that are challenging. And that's why the Bread and Butter Collective and our podcast, that's, you know, I feel...
Well, I mean, being healthy of mind and body, I mean, for an owner, for a leader of any industry or business, doesn't need to be paramount, but when it is made paramount and you take care of yourself first, you're way more capable of being able to take care of others. And when you aren't taking care of yourself, when you're not aware of what you're going through inside, you're oblivious to what's really important on the outside of you.
Oh, the very well said. And I think this is going to go down as one of our better podcasts, and
at least one of our top 6.
Well, 7.
Oh, is it 7?
This is number 7.
Oh my God, yeah, Calen! High five through the plexiglass.
High five, plexiglass.
Oh shit!
Don't take it down.
I think I did.
Oh, that was and we can talk forever about that. So you can find us at thebreadandbuttercollective.com.
You sure can.
We've got all of our Twitter, our Facebook, and Instagram
and YouTube
links.
now.
And we've got a YouTube link there as well, so you can see these shows. You can actually see these shows.
You can see how pretty we really are.
Our production team is hard working assembling all of our episodes, so we kind of did it out of order, but we're going to hopefully have them all in sequence and in order in due time. And should we go through our lovely list of collective members?
Yeah, you know, I think this list is a little short of people maybe because we have had a recent surge of activity, but we'll get to them next week.
Yeah, we apologize if we miss you.
Yeah, it's not that we don't think about you. We just missed you. I'll start off with 2% Jazz, and Agrius is a member, and Bodega, and Big Wheel Burger, and Nourish, and Charlotte the Quail, Drum Roaster Coffee, and Habit Coffee, and Foo, and the Culinary Arts from Camosun College, and Cafe Fantastico.
Filippi, Harold Street Brew Works, Hey Happy Coffee, House of Botang, Hoyne Brewery, La Pasta. My glasses are on.
The Rue Patisserie.
The Rue Patisserie, Mocha House Cafe, Part and Parcel, Poco Pinto Bar, or Poco, a Pinto Bar, Prima Strata Pizzeria, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, The Drake Eatery and Craft Beer Parlor, Tapa Bar, Taco Stand El Pastor, Toque, Zambri's, and the Wienery, I believe, from Penticton has joined. So
Yeah,
we've expanded our group outside of Victoria.
The Wienery.
The Wienery.
That is the greatest name.
Jeff was so excited about the Wienery because that's what he would call anything.
It's like a hot dog truck that goes to vineyards. Is that
Yes,
the thing?
yeah,
And so it's the
yeah.
Wienery.
The Wienery. I think it's fantastic.
I love it.
And you know what? They found us through our podcast.
That's what Jeff was saying.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are making a difference.
We are making a difference. One listener at a time. Now we got Penticton covered. We can move on to Vernon.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you been to Harold Street Brew Works yet?
I haven't. It's on my
Ooh.
list. Yeah.
Yeah, if they got a patio, I'm thinking this afternoon's a great day to go.
Yeah,
have
no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll join you there.
Maybe we'll go say hi to Mike.
Yeah, say hi to Mike. And thank you, listeners. We'll see you next time. And stay healthy, stay well. And if you need services or counseling services or think you might have something that could benefit, check out mindthebar.com. And we've got Ginger Henderson Consulting out in Royal Oak there. So I think great resources, and we're lucky to have them.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, listening, and be real nice to each other.
Be nice. Care.
I do, and I will.
Care about you, Sam.
I care about you, Calen. Let's care about each other, baby.
All right.